The government wants our biometrics because literally the government wants a surveillance society. And what every American needs to understand, you cannot reconcile a surveillance society with a free society. Despite what government would tell you that it's about security, I would argue it is not. It is about control. I am going to explain to you that in fact the Real ID Act is much more than a national ID. It's no accident that when President Clinton and Congress entered into an agreement that we refer to as NAFTA, AMVA was already working on creating a single jurisdiction for the sharing of information. In 1994, when NAFTA was signed or ratified as a treaty, AMVA proposed a single jurisdiction for the sharing of information between the states of the United States, the provinces of Canada, and the districts of Mexico. Now, many people argue about the Real ID Act specifically that the federal government is setting guidelines for state driver's license. The word that is being left out of that is the federal government is setting international standards as guidelines for a state driver's license. In the Real ID Act itself, the word biometric is not to be found. It's only when you go to that footnote on page 68 of the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking do you find out that our government wants to use your digital facial image, your photograph, as a biometric to be able to identify you. Now, your digital facial image, which you refer to as your photograph, the standard for that digital facial image is derived, or the adopted standard, of the ICAO. ICAO is the International Civil Aviation Organization, an agency of the United Nations. If you look at the Real ID Act, the purpose, which is derived from the 9/11 Commission, the single most important purpose was to ensure we had one person, one record. People were not getting multiple driver's licenses under different names, and also that we knew who the person was who was getting the driver's license. Now, AMVA, the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, they have been pushing for the use of biometrics for over 2 decades. AMVA itself is named as the hub and the backbone of the Real ID Act in the final rules issued by the Department of Homeland Security. Now, its name implies that it is truly an American organization. The fact is, AMVA is an international organization. They proclaim so on their website. When I came forward in 2004, turned evidence over to the government of the wrongdoing in the biometrics industry, the largest biometrics company in the United States was a company called Visage Technology. They were worth roughly $50 million. But I warned people then, this was a company to be watched. Visage morphed into another company called L1 Identity Solutions. L1 Identity Solutions has either direct or indirect access to the information, your personal information, in state DMV databases. The federal government, what we call the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, approved the sale of L1 to a French company named Safran. They described themselves as a partner of Communist China for 40 years. Safran is 30% owned by the French government. If the government knows the who, what, how, when, and where of our lives, they are able to control our actions. The people that attended the Super Bowl at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, those people unknowingly had their facial images captured by cameras and compared to law enforcement databases. So let me be very clear of this. When the people entered the stadium, their facial images were captured. Those facial images of the fans were compared to facial images that were in law enforcement databases. 85% or maybe even more of Americans, they're intimidated by government. If they believe that they are going to be identified in public if they go to a rally, they'd rather stay home. So what I want people to take away from what I'm saying is, yes, we're being told on one hand that our country does face a threat. Call it jihadism or Islamic extremism, call it whatever you would like. But that threat is being used to circumvent our Constitution.